But we're in the greenhouse again. Plenty we can be doing, going on with, and it's nice and warm in the greenhouse. It's great, wonderful to be here. And what I'm going to do this morning, what's on my list of chores to do, is that I'm going to prick out my tomatoes, which I have here in my heated propagator. I'll just undo it a moment for you to have a quick peek inside. And here we have my tomatoes, which are just at about the right stage now to prick out into individual pots, and then after a couple of weeks I'll put them into my grow bags here in the greenhouse. I'm also going to plant out my cabbage here in between the grow bags where I'm putting the tomatoes, but by the time the tomatoes are tall enough to start to interfere with them, I'll be harvesting them. So it's a bit of a catch crop here in the greenhouse, again getting a head start on what I can do before planting them out into the beds outside. Okay, so that's essentially it, what we're going to do. Here I've got carrots which I planted back in the beginning of March, and they're coming on now. I can take them out and I'll just put them into the greenhouse, on the greenhouse beds here, so just come on a bit further, and I'm going to then sow another load of carrot seed into another pot here, and on average they take about 7 days to germinate, and so we're going to be successional sowing carrot seeds into containers throughout the summer now. And again, out of this pot here I should get about 30-35 carrots clean, no problem with carrot root fly, no problem with forking, and they'll be delicious. I tend to use the variety called early Nantes, and I use them throughout the year. The early name doesn't mean anything really, well, not that I'm aware of, but you might put me right on that. So there we go. That's just an introduction to what I'm going to do this morning, and I'll show you a bit later on how far we've got. So, okay, here's now where I'm just going to start planting out my cabbage into the greenhouse border, and I'm just going to literally take one of the pots. You'll see here a nice root system starting to be produced by the plant. I'll just tease out some of the roots so they don't sort of remain in sort of a pot bound sort of array, and then I'll just dig a hole in the border, plonk it in so that it's about an inch or so deeper down than it was planted before. And there is another Greyhound is the variety I put in. Greyhound cabbage plant, planted in to the bed. And look, this one here, one of the lower leaves there is just snapped. I'm just going to break that off. It won't make any difference to the growth of the plant. So I look forward to harvesting them in several weeks time, and some nice cabbage with a nice Sunday roast. Stay tuned. Interestingly, I don't know whether you can see from there, but you'll see on the plant here, the leaves, these two lower leaves here, completely different shape than the leaves further up the stem. These are what we call the seed leaves, the dicotyledons, I think they're called. The leaves, the seed leaves, and then eventually what we call the true leaves appear, and they then become identifiable as the cabbage plant or one of the Brassica family. Bit of trivia for you. Okay, now come to the point where I'm just going to prick out my tomato plants. These are the ones I showed you earlier. They're just at the stage now where we can move them on from where they were sown as seed now to grow on in 9 centimetre or 3-inch pots just prior, where they can basically grow a better root system, get more vigour into the plant itself, and then the next stage is to plant them into the greenhouse border. So I'm just going to prick these out. I've got my compost ready here. I've got my pots, my little 3-inch 9 centimetre pots ready, and I've got my little seed sowing, pricking out station here ready, just a nice handy little tray that's purposely built for this purpose. Just makes things a lot easier, a lot more compact, enables us to do a good job. Okay, so I'm just going to get my dibber. No, first of all I'm going to fill my pot with some compost. Just press it down gently, not too vigorously, but we want to make sure that we press it down enough to get rid of all the spaces inside of the compost, get rid of all the air spaces. We just press our dibber down into one of the corners of the module, take hold of the leaf, and here we've got a nice root ball with it, so we can then pop it in. I'm going to take my finger because it's rather a big root ball, make a biggish hole, pop it in just a little bit deeper than we had it in the module, shake it around, press it down, and then add a little bit more, and then there we have our pricked out tomato seedling. We put it a bit deeper because tomatoes, because they're vines, when the stem goes underneath the soil, they'll throw out some more roots from the stem, and of course it'll give it more root area for it to take up water and nutrients and give us a more stable, vigorous plant. And the same, I'll do the same when I put it into the bed of the greenhouse bed. I'll put it down a little bit deeper again, and I'll even, in fact, as time goes on, maybe build up the level of compost around the stem in order to encourage these aerial roots. Sorry, these stem roots. Okay, there we go. We have a number of potted on Gardener's Delight cherry tomato plants ready to grow to the point where I can put them in the greenhouse bed. And don't forget to label them, and I've just added to the label, I know when I sowed the seed because I put the date there, that was the 5th of the 3rd 2013, and on the other side I've just put in there potted on with today's date, the 6th of April 2013. So go on, get on with it, do it. And if you fail the first time, keep on until you become expert at it. There's no science in this, it's just doing it and finding out what works for you. So good luck, keep at it, and you'll enjoy a super season of tomatoes. Every season. Hi, welcome back. Right, I've got to the point now. Oh, incidentally, what I've laid out here is my grow bag, and this is where I'm going to grow a couple of cucumber plants. I've got a bit of netting that I've attached to the sides of the greenhouse, and I just tie in the cucumber stems as they grow, and of course, weather permitting, even last year when the summer was very poor, I still had a pile of cucumbers. and I tend to use Fem Spot. That's the variety I use here in the UK. It's an all female, so I don't have to worry about pinching out the male flower so that it doesn't pollinate the female flower, and when it does that, it makes the fruits bitter. So if you want to try cucumbers in your greenhouse, then, or even the ridge cucumbers outside in your garden, make sure you get an all female variety. They're the best. You know what I mean? Wink, wink. Right. Now, what I'm going to do now, just in this little space here, that's all it needs, I'm going to grow my, or plant out my winter density lettuce. It's a bit later this year because it's been extremely cold. But I planted these, or I sowed these seeds on the 21st of February in my propagator. Now they're ready just to put out, and I'll put about maybe half a dozen, 10 or a dozen out in here, because I can grow them quite close together. They're a cos type lettuce, and so they don't need a lot of room, and especially being in a slightly raised bed, and I'm going to intensely water them and feed them, then there shouldn't be a problem, and I know there won't be a problem. So, well, first of all, just excuse me a second, keep looking. I'm just going to nip away and get some composted chicken manure just to spread over the surface. There we go, just got a couple of handfuls, and I'm just going to sprinkle it over the surface. There we go. And then I'll just use my fork just to agitate the surface a bit, just to take in below the ground. I mean, this is usually not this wet because I've just watered it, because I've just prepared the bed and I just wanted to let it compact down a bit with a bit of watering. But there you go. So now all I do is start to take out a lettuce plant from each of the modules. You can see a nice root system growing there. I'll just take my trowel, I'll start at about there, and then I'll put them in the surface. And there you go. Whilst lettuce don't like to be disturbed, I'm not actually disturbing the root ball itself, you know, the root system that's already been created. What they don't like being doing maybe is where you've grown a group of them and then you separate them out and you put them in. I like to sow them individually, or maybe a few seeds together. Then I'll cut out the weakest ones and leave the strongest one growing on in these modules like this, so that then I can just take them out and the root ball's complete and I can just transplant them into the place that they're going to grow to maturity. So there you go, another one there, and then pop that one in. These I put in about the same level as they were in the module. Just squeeze the sides a bit so that it loosens them, and then we've got another one, and so on. Okay, so there we have it. We've got about about 11, I think, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 lettuce plants planted out into the greenhouse bed, and now I'll just let them grow on until maturity in about, I don't know, 6, 7 weeks, maybe sooner. So take the opportunity to use every bit of space that you've got. Okay, thanks for watching. Hopefully see you in a bit. Okay, welcome back. Another job that I had penciled in for today was to sow another pot of carrots. As I've said before, if you've seen any of my videos, I always grow carrots in pots, simply because they are free from any pests. Maybe have to keep your eye out for maybe some aphids in the summer. But carrot root fly I've never had a problem with. They're always coming out very clean. They're never forked, and in a pot like this, 14-inch pot I think it is, you get about 35 carrots, and I use early Nantes as I said earlier. And out of a longer, more rectangular container, you could get to around 60 to 70 carrots. I just don't do anything else. I just don't grow carrots in anything else. I certainly wouldn't grow them outside anymore. Just no need to. Of course, it's great for you people who are living in flats or apartments, or got a very small garden where you've got a nice patio area. You could just pop some carrots in. The foliage looks great as well. Very ornamental. So let's carry on. What I'm doing, I've got a pot here that I grew some in last year. What I've done is taken out half of the compost, and I'm going to reinvigorate the compost that's left behind. And I use half and half of peat-free and peat compost. I'm not yet satisfied with the results of getting a completely peat-free compost. Use a completely peat-free compost. The results are just not as good. So I've compromised. So what I'm going to do is I've got my trusty composted chicken manure again, and I'll just take a handful and sprinkle it round, and then I'll just mix that in so that it gets right down to the bottom as well as evenly out through the rest of it. I'll put a little bit more just over the top, and then I'll get some of my fresh compost, and I'll top that up with that, just gently sprinkling it round until we're just really about there at the moment, just about an inch or two below the surface. Then I'll sprinkle some more of that compost, that beautiful composted chicken manure on, and we'll fork that in as well. And that's all I'll need to worry about in terms of nutrients for the plant. The composted chicken manure, I also take about 1/3 of a bag of it, and I put it in a sack, and then I pop it, tie the neck up and then tie a string to it, and I pop it inside my water pot, and it comes out with a lovely compost tea. And I can water my plants with it, dilute it half and half in a watering can, and I can foliar feed my plants with it, as well as drenching the soil around them and feeding the roots as well. So it's very, very versatile. Just gently work the surface so that it's nice and fairly compacted, not too much. And then all I do is just get maybe a thick cane, bamboo cane, and then I'll sort of do about four little rows of carrots. And so I'll start with by just pressing it in, just to get a sense of where I'm going to have them. Just press it about the depth of the cane, and this is about 1/2 inch diameter, the cane that is. And then we've got a nice four rows to actually sow the seed in. So now we're just going to do that, and just gently shake them out of the packet, or whichever way you choose to put them in. But do them as thinly as you can, but not too thinly, because some will germinate and some will not, and there will be some thinning out to do when they start to germinate. But you don't want to start thinning them out until they're about 1 inch tall. But this way I find more than adequate to get them in to the density that I want them to be. So, just where you see maybe there's too much space, you can always pop a little more in, but don't be tempted to really cram them in, because you'll have a bit of a job, a tedious job, if you have too many that you've got to thin out. And then all I'll do is just take some compost, just cover them over, and like so, and then I'll scrape the top with my hand, palm of my hand, and then that's it. That's done. You know, that was straightforward, wasn't it? And basically what I'll do now is just water the top. That'll compact it down onto the seeds, so that they're in contact with the soil itself, and then they'll start to, about 7 days in at this temperature, start to germinate. Great. Again, thanks for watching. Hi. Well, that's most of my jobs done that I planned for today, for this morning. What I've done is I've pricked out my tomato plants and I've put them in their 3-inch pots, ready to grow on until they're ready to put into the greenhouse border. Then I've planted my cabbages out as a catch crop between the tomato grow bags. I've planted out my winter density cos lettuce as a catch crop on this side of the greenhouse, in this border. I've also sown carrot seeds in this pot, which I put into my heated propagator, and I've taken the ones that I brought on a week or 3 back, and they're coming on now. I'll leave them in the greenhouse, and well, as you can see, my propagator is empty, and what I'll do in the meantime, I'll get some of my seed trays and I'll turn them upside down onto the propagator bed, and that'll just help to conserve the heat that's being generated by the low wattage heating cable that's underneath. Okay, so I'm Lawrence Ireland from vegetablegardenguide.com. This is just a morning in my greenhouse, and I hope you've enjoyed it and that you've learned something, and maybe you can comment on it underneath here and let me learn something from you. So have a smashing season of growing delicious veg in your own garden. Take care now. God bless. Bye.